Hi guys, welcome back to Planet Coaster here on Geekism. My name's John T, and today we're carrying on with our Let's Build series, although we've moved away from the main street for a little while because, well, frankly, I wanted to build a ride, and one of the rides I've not really had a look at yet because it came quite late in the beta is the River Rapids. So here we go, we're starting with the River Rapids. The idea here is this is going to be a western area. You'll see there's a dirt path that I've kind of laid out, which is going to be the start of the western area, and this is going to be one of maybe 3 or 4 rides here. We're going to have this, we're going to have a mine train, and then maybe a few flat rides that kind of fit the theme, and obviously some restaurants and things like that. I had quite a lot of fun building this actually, and you'll notice I haven't used many of the features that it has, the actual rapidy sections and also drops. There's only 2 small drops in there and a couple of little rapid sections. My idea with this was that it was going to be more of a scenery-based ride and less about sort of big drops. And in my opinion, that's usually how rapids go. You'll get a couple of drops, a couple of wobbly bits, but for the most part, it's about getting a bit wet from different sort of sprays and things, and enjoying some scenery. I've seen a lot of people make the rapids, and they've almost made them like log flumes, you know, sort of big tall things with huge drops, and in my opinion at least, that's not really how rapids should go. They should be relatively low to the ground, tight to the terrain, and the fun comes from the scenery and the splash moments as opposed to huge drops. I've tried my best to make the station to look like most of the rapid stations I've been on, which are the circular stations that actually rotate with the rapids, and I've only ever been on one rapid ride that doesn't use one of those stations, which is the one in Busch Gardens in Tampa Bay in Florida. I forget what the actual ride's called, but it's their rapids. They have a more traditional sort of stepping in station, but normally rapids use this sort of turntable, and I've tried my best to make it look like that using this sort of curved area and the steps down to it, but that's about the best as we can do now. I decided to get them all running and get them going. I start off with 20, and I think that's fantastic. 20 cars, I'm like, that's great, we're going to get loads of people on there. But the testing's a bit weird because it kind of shoots them out really quickly, and there's a big difference between how fast they go out through the test and how fast they go out through the people. So we actually end up halving that to 10 carts, or I don't know what you call them, really, dinghies I guess, going round. But the nice thing is as one comes in, the next one's going out, so you have to kind of play with the numbers and figure out, depending on how long your ride is and how long it's taking people to get on them, how many sort of dinghies you can actually have. But the way we do it, I opened it up now, let people come in and start riding it, and you find that people got stuck right at the end and they sat there for ages, and it didn't seem to bother them that much, although it probably should, but it didn't seem to bother them that much. But obviously you don't want them sitting there, you want them getting off and spending money on other things. Even though this is sandbox, you still want people to move around and see all the parts of the park. So we've sort of set out the wooden area here, and then we decorate it a little bit. I've named the ride Ripsaw Logging Company, because my original idea was to use some of the new western features. There's logs and saw blades and things like that. To be honest with you, by the time I finished, there's actually very little logs there, so this is actually part 1 of 2 based on this ride, because it's quite a long one and there's a good sort of 3 or 4 hours footage here, and if I speed it up any more, it becomes almost unwatchable. So there's going to be a part 2, which will probably be the last bit of this ride, and then maybe the first sort of utilities block, so a couple of restaurants and toilets and things like that in the western area. So we start off with a bit of light scenery here, basically some of these western stuff. I really want to start the western area because obviously the western design stuff didn't come out in the alpha, so it's mostly new to me, and I had loads of fun using it. It all looks absolutely stunning. Also, I tried to use some wood here. Unfortunately they're a bit long, and I keep saying to myself, I'll come back to that, and I never actually do. But one of the stuff I love are all these sort of animatronic sort of cogs and steam engines and things, and we actually end up doing a whole sort of facade using these that creates the sort of water shooting area. I don't know about you guys, but a lot of rapids I've been on have an area where there's little shoots of water spurting out from different areas, and I decided to use a lot of those sort of steam machine pieces to do it with. There you go, I've just knocked it down to 10 people, and so I had to close the ride there, but they come back in. A couple of these steam special effects occasionally as well, just to sort of give a bit of movement to the area. And that's pretty much all we do for the station, although it isn't really finished. I have to do a lot more work to the pathing area as well, but we do that in the next episode. Here, this is the beginning of a cave. Now, I've actually just done this part of the cave. The cave is actually going to be larger, and it's also going to contain part of the mine train ride that we're going to be doing at a later date. In Alton Towers, which is probably the thing I've been to the most, because it's not too far from where my family live. Alton Towers in the UK has a mine train and a rapid ride that both share a tunnel, and they both go through the tunnel at the same time. Well, I say at the same time. Sometimes, as you're going around the rapids, the mine train will come roaring past you through the tunnel. I always think it's a really lovely feature, so we're going to try and replicate it there. So that tunnel at the moment is kind of just the entranceway, just so the rapids work, but what we'll actually do is end up going a bit further back inside there into a cave and building a mine train roaring past the rapids at a later date as well. I just add some walls here because obviously this area won't be closed in, but the idea is this is meant to look like the factory. And I wanted to close them in so I could see what space I have behind them. I had an idea for the rapids to kind of go through different sort of areas that you would find them interesting. So here there isn't much room, so I decided to go for a small area using rocks and some of the water special effects and create like a hot springs area. And we call it something like Manatuga Hot Springs. I don't know, I tried to come up with a word that sounded Native American. I apologise if I offend anybody, but Mantanuga I think is what I call it, Mantanuga Hot Springs. So here it's basically just red rocks and some of the new water special effects, and actually they turn out really well. And the other thing I really like is a very Disney-esque thing, and things I've seen in many parks actually, where each area has a little sign saying what it is, and some of these western signs are absolutely fantastic. So there we go, Montanuga Hot Springs. We just sort of lay them in there so they can see the area that they're heading into. So once we've done those, we then move on to our next area, which is a really long strip of rapid where there's not much going on. This is going to become a sort of water shooting area. I don't know if it's got a technical term. I apologise if it does. If it does, and I'm not using it. But a lot of rapids I've been on, they've had these sorts of areas where there's chutes and things like that. And I also had a load of fun using the triggers in here as well, and sort of setting the both the water spouts and also music and sound effects in this area as well. Obviously we're using some background music there, but when we do a ride through later on, you'll be able to see the music. There's a piece of music called Wacky Scientist or something like that, and there's sound effects that sound like cogs whirring and stuff. So I'll be honest with you, it goes a little steampunk here, but I tried to keep it relatively not realistic, but still within the Western theme. Because I didn't want to go full steampunk, although that's probably not something we'll do in this park. I would like to do a steampunk area eventually. The reason I say I don't want to do it in this park is this park, since it's our first one, I really want to kind of use each scenery theme just as it is and see what you can do with them before we move on to sort of mashing them together and creating newer themes. So you'll see here that I'm placing the spouts in and then turning the pipes away from them so it looks like they're just floating in the air, and that's because I did a little bit of forward thinking, which is something I don't normally do, but I realised that in a moment I was going to use triggers and I was going to have to click those special effects to set them to a trigger. So that's why the pipes are a bit squiff. Once the triggers are all set up, I'd move those pipes back into place. That's something you should bear in mind with these special effects and speakers and all things like that. You need to be able to click them, you need to be able to get to them, so they can't necessarily be hidden. Personally, I don't feel that stuff like that needs to be hidden, speakers and things like that. Maybe these water spouts do, because they would probably actually run through the pipes. But things like speakers, you'll see actually at the end that you can see the speakers sticking out. They're at the top of the walls and also along the floor to keep the music running as the rapid goes through. But personally, I quite like that. I quite like the fact that this. I quite like designing a real park and not completely sort of fanciful. I like the idea that you can see speakers and the backs of buildings and stuff, which is something we'll do with this eventually as well, build the back of the building. I actually quite like that, so for me personally, that's how it's going to be. You'll be able to see the speakers and things like that. Had a little trouble with the speakers. I found that if you place the speakers in a building, you couldn't select the sound that they played, but if you place them on their own and just sort of put them near the building, so when I say the building, I mean what the game thinks of as a building. It wouldn't play, but if you put them on the own, you could. I'll double check with that, and if it still stays, I'll put it in as a bug report. But it was a weird little feature there. So here we have the one trigger. You'll see on the right there, it's actually trigger number 2. I've placed a trigger number 1 by the cave, just in case I want it. I'm not too sure what I'll need it for yet, but I might end up playing some cave music or something. But for the most part, I imagine anything I do in there will just be constantly playing sort of cave sound effects and things like that. But I thought I'd chuck a trigger up there. It's there if I need it. It's not. If we don't use it, it doesn't really matter. So here you go. I'm just selecting the different sounds here. I try and chuck them behind items, but then I find that it's actually really quite quiet. So instead, I think, well, sod it, let's do it like a real theme park and let's have them sticking out there. Even places like Disney that really go to town on their theming, you can still see speakers. They're normally themed speakers, so they look like they're part of the building, but you can still see them because obviously that the sound needs to travel through the air, so they don't really want to just sort of chuck them behind stuff. I placed that one in there with some backgroundy type sound, but you really can't hear it, so I'll probably end up getting rid of that. And then we kind of finished this area off now with some corrugated roofing. I had to be a bit clever with the roof in there because we're really close up to the park edge there. But it's mostly for show. Again, we'll end up coming around and filling in the back of this building with some behind the scenes type stuff. Finish off with a little sign there and some more steam coming out of the chimneys. I think that's quite cool. I tried this dry ice. But it looks a bit heavy, so I ended up getting rid of that and replacing them with steam, even though the steam should probably come out sideways on those. I think it looks okay at the top. And then we do a sign here, just warning people of the wet floor. A few more bits of steam, and then we just sort of fill in these gaps now with some of the some of the western features. I have no idea what this factory is meant to be. It's just got loads of steam and some reels and some cases. I don't know, it's all just filler. And then I love these water towers as well. I couldn't think of where else we would probably use them, so I decided to place them here as we move into the next area, and obviously that spout just screams to have water spouting out of it. Here I wanted a bit of a well, originally I was going to go for like an Indian area. There's a part of Disney where you go, in the Magic Kingdom, where you go on the train and it goes past a little Indian area with all these little Indian animatronics, but there are no native Indian pieces particularly, no wigwams or anything like that. And although I could have made teepees, I guess, with some other pieces, I found that caravan at the campsite there. I thought that looked pretty cool and was enough. And then I made a fountain here out of some of the special effects and filled them in with the red rock and a bit of tree. Bit of bush. Finally, the big drop here is going to be not themed particularly. Obviously, we want people just to enjoy the drop, and then we do a little water feature, and sort of finish off this area. This is the bit that still needs a bit of work. This sort of pond and the area back into the station and the queue will most likely, or the queue area at least, will be sort of roofed in and all that. But we don't do that in this one. We just sort of finish off the area there, and then, if in doubt, put a tree there. We fill in all the areas there with some foliage. So we're, and I build a little mound in that little space there between the ride and the path. So there you go. That's the main build. Like I say, we'll finish it off next week along with some themed restaurants nearby. But that's pretty much it. We're going to cut now to. Not a full ride through because I'll probably do that once it's finished, but we'll do a few what I like to call glamour shots just to show you where we're up to. Thanks very much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, give us a like. It really does help out the channel. And if you'd like to see more, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next one.